welcome back. It is the Vegas Take Sharp and Shapiro. Glad you could join us on a Friday. You know, I remember watching TV in 2012, watching the news at night, and watching the story unfold, right? Nutjob walks into a movie theater in Aurora, Colorado, wearing, weird gear, artillery, you name it. He walks into this Aurora movie theater, shoots a bunch of people, kills 12 people, including children. This happened back in 2012, clearly mentally ill. There was another horrific mass shooting, not that far from Columbine, by the way, either. And the movie that was being played was, of course, the Joker movie. I just can't imagine what it's like sitting down in a movie theater, enjoying a film, maybe you're on a date or with a family member or friends, and all of a sudden you're screaming and fighting for your life. So we all remember that. Luckily, all of us didn't experience it, but we all remember it. Well, now the Joker movie, the new one that's out, called Dark Knight Rises. And that movie will not be played in the Aurora Theater. And the woman we have with us on the line right now was in that movie theater in 2012. Luckily survived. Her name is Kaylan Bailey. Kaylan, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm sure you've heard about this Joker movie not being played in Aurora. But before I get to that, can you share with us really quickly, how old were you in 2012 when this occurred, when you were in that theater?
I was 13 years old when it occurred.
And you were babysitting a young child who lost her life. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And we've been through this with other, survivors of these mass shootings. And I would imagine, when you wake up every morning and when you go to sleep, this is something that never exits your mind, I would imagine, right?
No, definitely not. And especially now when it happens like every other day.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. How long did it take you to see a movie in the movie theater after that?
Oh, man, it took me quite a while. I was convinced that I would never, ever see a movie in a movie theater ever again in my life, but I was pretty young when it happened, and I made the decision not to let that one incident affect my entire future and ruin, fun that I could possibly have in the future. I think I went back for the first time maybe like a year or shortly before a year hit for the reunion.
Wow.
Or I'm sorry, the memorial.
Right. No, I understand that. It's something that never goes away. So the FBI has announced that there has been some very odd extremist social media posts, that there's been some threats in regards to this new movie, Dark Knight Rises. So my opinion on this is that the movie should be played. And the reason why I say that is because, these bastards win, right? I think if the movie isn't played, I feel like it sets a bad precedence. But nobody's opinion is more important than yours. So do you agree or disagree with the decision that the Aurora Theater has made in not showing the Joker movie?
Well, I think that, and now I have different opinions from both perspectives on this. In my personal opinion, I honestly didn't think that Century should have been rectified. I think that it should have been closed down completely. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where I stand altogether about the theater itself.
I don't disagree with that, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, for them to not play the movie, I agree with that one theater deciding not to play the movie just because, one, of the memories that it would bring up, and two, the fact that most of the survivors feel that theater should not even be alive today. Mm-hmm. Now, I personally would never go see any Batman movie ever again. I just feel too scarred from that. But I do know that Batman is a very loved superhero, and so to take that away from others, I definitely would not agree with. So in terms of just that one theater not playing it, I am seeing where that would be a good business decision. But if it was to have been taken away like from all theaters completely and just not shown, I definitely wouldn't think that would be right.
And I understand where you're coming from, and I certainly agree with you that if they wanted to, tear down, like for example, the Sandy Hook shooting, right? They tear down the whole school, and when we see some of these mass shootings that have happened, They either put up like even 9/11, right? The World Trade Center. Those they put up one building, but they also have this huge memorial, and people come, and but it still is business as usual. But you never forget. But I agree with you. I'm not quite sure they should have kept that movie theater open. But what would you say to somebody like me, or to somebody that didn't go through the hell that you went through, to say, well, wait a second, I live right down the street from the movie theater. I want to see this movie. Why would you take that right away from me? Do you think that is selfish to have that sort of opinion?
I mean, not necessarily, but both parties could be argued there as well. You weren't there, so why could that be taken away from you? But then, well, I was there, and why did my childhood get to be taken away from me? So it's kind of like a back and forth argument. I don't think that there would really be any win to it. And it's really just opinion-based at the end of the day, so it's very hard to really stand and prove an opinion.
Yeah, no, I listen, and I there's nobody that would respect your opinion more than me. I mean, I totally understand where you're coming from on this. Holmes, the guy who, and I know it's probably not a great subject to talk about or even bring up his name, but the man who committed that atrocity, the animal who did that, if you had a chance to sit next to him, and I'm not saying you would, or sit across from him through a window, what would you say to him?
I don't think that I could say. I wouldn't know what to say. I don't think I would say anything to him. I'd probably give him a very good death stare.
Right.
But I don't think he deserves my words or my thoughts or opinions or anything. I think he knows. I mean, he has to know what he did. And if he doesn't think that it's wrong, then, I mean, I guess that's enough. I believe in karma. Whether you get it in life or afterlife, I believe that he will get what's coming to him.
I certainly hope you're right. If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Kaylan Bailey. She was in the Aurora movie theater where 12 people were killed, including the young child who she was babysitting when she was very young herself back in 2012. We're talking about the Joker movie, announced that the Aurora Theater will not play the new movie, Dark Knight Rises. Okay, so, Kaylan, as you know, and you alluded to this, these mass shootings seem to happen all the time. It seems to be on a weekly basis. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, we had one of the worst mass shooting in American history right here in our backyard in Las Vegas, where 58 people lost their lives. And we talk about gun control, and I know you're one that has spoken up about that. And we see the Parkland students and what they've been able to do, and I know you've spoken to them. And I admire all of you so much for what you've been able to do. We had Mr. Gutenberg on, who lost his daughter in the Parkland shooting. Doesn't it? I mean, I can't imagine. I'm so frustrated that nothing gets done in Congress, that Republicans, and mainly Republicans, are responsible for some of these, gun legislation and some of these laws, unable to pass. But it must make you feel some solace in knowing that, Walmart and some of these big companies are not selling ammunition, and they are taking small steps, but steps in the process. Kroger's is another company. So how do you feel about that, number one, that there are some steps being taken, but number two, people, like Mitch McConnell, that refuse to pass any type of gun legislation?
I do. I really appreciate when it's taken into consideration and acknowledged from third-party companies of where it's taken place at, like Walmart, or even in my case, the Aurora theater shooting, and what that theater did for us and our family to make us feel safe in the theater and in the neighborhood. All of that is truly appreciated, but it's hard knowing that even with those gestures, it's still not enough to make a change, and it's still not enough to prevent it from happening again, and it won't be enough until something is done higher up in Congress, and I don't think that it really will matter to anyone there until it happens to them. They're not in a position where this could affect them or their family, their children, friends, so on and so forth. But it's constantly affecting us all around the world. And instead of taking this matter and making it, the biggest thing to rectify, the biggest thing to try and, figure out how to have an equal balance of people with their rights for guns and all of that, as well as balancing it out so we can stop the shootings and stop the murders and the violence, so on and so forth.
Right.
But I truly don't think that anything will be done until either something affects one of the people in Congress and maybe they do lose a loved one because of a mass shooting or something like that.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, if it comes down to it, the world, United States, whoever needs to do it to make sure that we we fight for what we deserve, which is equal peace. Like, yes, we get that there are gun laws, yes, and you should have your say in if you can carry a gun. And if you can carry a gun, by all means do so if you're responsible with that decision.
Mm-hmm.
But there are people out there that, one, have guns without a license, or two, have the license when they shouldn't. And it's just working through the different angles, pretty much.
And you know what? I've heard arguments on the right, ridiculous arguments. They feel more guns are the answer, which I think is absurd. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I don't think more guns would really answer anything except more violence, which I guess if we're trying to reduce population, that's all fine and dandy, I guess. But it's just, I think it's a matter of everyone wants to have, what's mine is mine. You can't take that away from me. And they feel that we're trying to take away their privilege or their right to have a gun, but that's not it at all. It's just the fact that we have to find a better way to control it. They can still have their guns if they have the license and the mental capacity to handle that. There are some people out there that either do things and then claim mental illness, or they are truly mentally ill and they should not have access to those weapons, but they do.
Mm-hmm. You were in a situation, luckily, that I've never been in, where that helpless feeling where you have someone spraying bullets, you're in fear for your life, and really there's nothing you can do except hide. And, to somebody like Mitch McConnell, I like to call him the useless turtle because that's what he is. To somebody like Mitch McConnell, who probably is, I can almost assure you, has never been in that situation that you've been in, can you explain those moments that you have to relive every day, the fear that you had, the helpless feeling that you had in that movie theater in 2012, fearful of your life? Because 99.9% of people have never had to experience what you had to experience. So if you're speaking to Mitch McConnell, explain to him what you had to go through that night.
Man, and that is difficult to do, especially if you haven't been through that. But, I mean, really the best comparison I can make is just and even if this hasn't happened to anyone where they have come to a near-death experience, maybe it's not like a mass shooting or something like that, but just a near-death experience, that feeling where you're so low, where you truly think this is the last thing you will ever see, these are the last people you will ever know, this is the last thing you'll ever remember before you die, then you're also questioning what even comes after death. There is no proof of, where we come from or where we go. And it's a very scary thought and feeling, thinking about the people that you will leave behind and what they will do because of the way that you left that world.
So you're thinking about your family in those moments and your parents, right? And oh my God, how are they going to go on without me? That was sort of what was entering your head in those moments?
That, and honestly, I was afraid of death. I didn't know how it would feel. I didn't want to suffer. I didn't want to, get shot maybe in like my leg and just bleed out a slow, painful death. I was thinking all of those things. How bad will this affect me? How much will this hurt?
Sure. How
fast will I go? Am I going to get shot in my head? Am I going to get shot in my knee?
I totally understand. Yeah, I totally understand it. Well, Kaylan, I'll tell you, it's people like you that are brave enough to tell your story. I compare you very similar, sadly, to the Parkland students, those that made it out of there, that are changing the course of history in this country. I truly believe that. It's going to take some time. Sadly, it's not going to happen overnight. It should, but it's not. But I truly believe that if we are talking 10 years from now, I believe there are going to be drastic changes when it comes to guns, when it comes to mental illness, and I believe you are going to be a big part of that and a big part of history. So thank you so much for joining us. I totally respect your opinion when it comes to this Joker movie not being played in that theater, and we hope we could join with you again sometime and discuss this further. Thank you so much for your time, Kaylan. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. There you go. Kaylan Bailey. She was a young girl back in 2012 in the Aurora movie theater where 12 people lost their lives. The announcement has been made that this Joker movie will not be played in this Aurora theater. I want to tie this into Las Vegas, and I want to take your calls coming up next. Kaylan says that movie theater should have been torn down, and there should be a memorial there. We had 58 people lose their lives across from Mandalay Bay, that Route 91 festival. And now they're turning it into a parking lot for profit. What do you think about this Joker situation? Do you think the movie should be played in Aurora? What do you think about what they did to the movie theater there? Should it be a memorial? Should it still be open? And what do you think they're doing with the parking lot where 58 people lost their lives? Take your calls next at 257-5396. That's 702-257-5396. Take a break. Be back right after this.